Hello Connects Music, my name is Will Davenport and this is part 2 of the first episode of a new series of online conversations with LGBT musicians and creators working within the industry. This series we are calling Open Conversations. Thank you Connects Music for hosting this for me. Once again, for part 2 we are joined by Luca Manning and Asher Fynn. If you would like to watch part 1 then do click the link below, and otherwise I hope you enjoy the continuation of the conversation.
I've done nothing, but I'm still here. When I'm nothing, the world's still here. Waking, time has been nothing but cruel. Longing's taking hold of me, stretching fibers of my skin. I've done nothing, but I'm still here. When I'm nothing, the world's still here. What is the point I am making when there's no point of me waking? Time has been nothing but cruel. Longing's taking hold of me, stretching fibers of my skin until there's thousands.
Okay, well, this is from my most recent venture, if you like. It's a production called Antics, Glimmers. I just really wanted to respond to the situation we're in by, trying to utilize as many of the skills I had, because I love production. I love making videos, and I love working with people and collaborating. So massive shout out to Sweat Mother if they ever see this. They're the creative videographer and just exceptional vision throughout the project. And we filmed Reese's Pieces, Ruby, Cramps, and Eric Fabrizi. We brought them into the space at Vogue Fabrics. So shout out to Vogue Fabrics for not only the financial support, but also the space. And we let them do their performance and we filmed it. Part of the project was also doing photography. We were working on a limited budget, so I was also paying people in photos. And one of the door bitches from the live antics show, Dilemma, shout out to Joe Collier as well, who was the other door bitch, Dilemma had to go into lockdown, so they couldn't come in and do a photo shoot. So I was like, oh shit, well, let's do a digital one across Zoom. So they got into this beautiful outfit and makeup, and it was very lovely. And I lay my computer down flat and I put all velvet around it, and I did a photo shoot with them. And then then I was like, oh, we should like make a video. So I started filming it, and I was like, this is gorgeous. And then I made this instrumental track, and I was like, oh my God, but I have never heard you singing, Dilemma, because they're also a bass singer. And I was like, I never heard you singing, please sing. And so they wrote some lyrics about being in lockdown, and they recorded it under this duvet with a microphone in their bedroom and sent it. And I'd never heard it, and I just weaved it into this kind of, I gave them a limitation of a key signature, and then I just weaved it in. That's enough process stuff, but it was an offshoot of the last project.
I'm so amazed at the everything, like just the fact that that was all done digitally, and that's how creative people are being right now. I mean, that is amazing, and how you did the laptop, how the whole aesthetic, and amazing. I'm just like amazing.
It seems like for both of you, like whilst we talk about lockdown, you've both collaborated with new people, and so who currently inspires you?
Gosh, it's another big question in the same way as Luca. People in my close-knit community who I've been able to work with over the last few months, they've kind of really grounded me. But it's not limited to just people either. I've also worked with some organizations like the Carer Centre for Brighton and Hove. Hearing the experiences of the young carers, for example, has been really humbling. The Carer Centre are a charity who work with young carers between ages 6 to 17. And the situation for lockdown has affected them just astronomically, which is why, we did part of our project, which is providing people with tablets. Doing like Instagram drag shows by Soraya Marshall was amazing. Being on the Guildhall Pride event with you two was amazing. There's been other Instagram shows, Rush, shows that I've been part of. I saw Milan Eyes the other day, which is a YouTube show. They pre-recorded everything to try and tell a story for Halloween. And they did another show a couple of weeks ago. That was amazing. And it raised like more than £420 for like different charities. And I just think, wow. Who else inspires me? Like Reese's Pieces, that's a huge inspiration of mine. The people at the Forward Facing UK, which provide lasting memories for people with children with life-limiting conditions, and also the crew working at the Children's Centre here in Brighton. Don't know if you know, but children's centres haven't been able to operate. And it's not just a children's centre, it's a community space, it's a community centre. That's where me and Mum would usually have done our holiday projects for the community. Couldn't happen. And the people there are working, endlessly to try and support their local community. So to all the people who have been doing like kind of community work and outreach and like this kind of like silent but amazingly resourceful people, like they also inspire me. So yeah.
If we as a community, as an immediate community, can keep each other going and support each other to be ourselves and visible, and keep creating and keep sharing our stories, then hopefully that can bring some kind of comfort to people that are in difficult situations. And many of the people creating themselves are probably in difficult situations. But I totally agree with everything that's been said. This pandemic is, you can't get it twisted. It's showing the real disparity and the kind of class divide across the UK, and just the unfairness that still exists in society in so many ways. So I think it's important that we just acknowledge that and try and do what we can in our own communities to fight it, and just to be there for people. So yeah, I think as artists, like, it's important to keep creating. I don't believe that we should sit back and go, oh well, that's venue shut, so I'll just kind of put my feet up for however long until they reopen. You know, and I think that's the opposite of what we've done. You know, we've both shared things, and I know, well, you've been doing lots as well. It's like we have created and we've continued to create, and I guess that's what's really special about what like you've done with the antics thing as well, Asher, because you've actually, you know, given something to the artists that you've worked with in terms of like the photos or like creating videos or like collaborations and employment. You know, I really employ my friends and the people that deserve it. You know, I don't really have an interest in, you know, that's my priority, is to actually work with people that I love.
In terms of visibility, yeah, I absolutely vibe 100% with what Luca's saying. I mean, there's different ways of being visible as well. I guess there's online communities. It comes back to what we were talking about earlier. And maybe the baseline isn't visible, but, you know, participate.
Especially like being at conservatoire, I think jazz was a music, you know, that was founded in really in the blues and oppression of people, and a kind of musical uprising as well as a social one, and therefore it was a kind of hotbed of self-expression, and you know, there was this kind of really bohemian scene that people found themselves in as kind of outsiders but kind of beautifully creative folk. And I think then now, as jazz has become a conservatoire path of study, you know, it's been kind of positively institutionalized in a sense, but it's definitely in the UK become a thing of kind of white middle class straight boys go to conservatoire to study jazz. So that's been an interesting thing to just pick up on and look at. You know, there's a lot of conversation about women in jazz and queer people in jazz and the racial aspect of jazz and how we can understand that and pay respect to it. At the same time, you know, we find ourselves in a situation where in the UK there's a lot of folk studying it that maybe come from a background that's different to that, whatever. So have I faced barriers myself? I suppose, you know, atmospheres are important in a scene. The jazz scene is a scene. It's a small scene ultimately. It's pretty niche. You know, you don't hear everyone on the street going, yeah, I study jazz music. And when it's been dominated by kind of straight boys, then yeah, I have found it at times when you're on a coach, you know, a big band coach, or like 30 other lads, and they're all kind of like, then there's been times where I definitely wish I'd spoken up, that I bit my tongue. Now I'm more likely to call stuff out and work through it. And quite often when I have called stuff out recently, it's been met with like, shit, I'm so glad you pulled me up on that. That won't be happening again, which has been really, really positive. But like any scene, there's been, not like any scene, but like a lot of other scenes, there's been moments where I've like just thought I need to pave my way and be who I am. But like my main concern was being a great jazz singer initially. You know, I moved to a new city and I just wanted to like explore that scene, explore that city. Now, my main concern isn't really pleasing anyone apart from myself. So I'm much more likely to be like, no. And I have more confidence in who I am and how I present myself, because it can be really daunting when you're part of any minority to be in a room full of people that you think might not understand where you're coming from. But the minute you find the inner strength, which you find through, you know, me finding that in the queer community and elsewhere, bringing that into the jazz scene and being confident enough in myself, means that ultimately I don't feel any barriers now. You know, I, if there are any, then they're going to get knocked through, hopefully. So it's a journey.
That's really inspiring and like empowering that you can build that confidence. Would you say that it took time through like your time in the conservatoire to sort of build it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm still like unpicking stuff and like becoming who I am. I suppose I don't think I'm by any means a finished product. And I think like, yeah, like as a queer person, like you're just always kind of developing and like working on yourself and unpicking certain things. So for me, yeah, it took a lot of time because I put up a lot of barriers in myself. Like I was saying, when I was like, I just want to be a great jazz singer and like work on this scene. So I did what I could to please people to make that happen. and now I'm on a journey to try and lose that worry, and that's a time thing for sure. You know, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of internal work. Like, how do I feel about myself, and how does that relate to how I work within this scene? You know, can I? There was a point where I was like, can I be this outwardly queer and work in the jazz scene as straight as it seems? But to be honest, like, through just being unapologetically myself, the reaction that I've got, I've really realised that there's a whole aspect of the scene that that is totally supportive of it and loves it in venues as well. Because I was worried. Like, I remember the first time I, you know, played at Ronnie's with my earrings in, and I was like, are they gonna like hate this? Are they gonna, you know? And it's like a small thing in a small thing for them, but a big thing for me, you know. Or like, is it okay for me to go in full face in this venue, like, you know, when it's not a queer venue? But ultimately, I think if you're unapologetic yourself, I don't think anyone can argue with that, really.
Yeah, well, firstly, Luca, thank you so much for sharing so much. That was so resonating and just felt really, really powerful and vulnerable. I vibed with a lot of it, actually. Although I would say, like, I had so many beautiful, really close friends. I don't know if it's a reflection of the wider community as such, but just being in a conservatoire, and I came from a very visual place, very kind of like visible, I guess, if you want to call it that way. And I put that a lot at the forefront. I knew already that wasn't everyone's way of communicating, of course, but I think within that environment there was a lot of discomfort with it. And, you know, I think people process someone who's very visibly queer in different ways. I did find it quite difficult. I'm not going to kind of dwell on any kind of negativity with it, because actually my experience of Guildhall was beautiful and I loved it. And as a kind of educational and projects, all the things was just really wonderful. And the friends I've made, the community that I'm here with now is so beautiful, so powerful. But I will say, you know, as a kind of a queer person, I think I was just trying to deal with external things like outside of uni simultaneously with trying to form a musical identity, whilst also trying to feel like, or just trying to navigate imposter syndrome, basically. I will say I did have some kind of very formative external to university things happening simultaneously with the Guildhall things. My first kind of term at uni, my friend and I were attacked outside of uni. And prior to that, I was dealing with transphobic abuse with the police and trying to get a case finalized, just taking months. As you know, you were talking about, Luca, just wearing earrings and trying to enter a space that feels so out of sync with maybe your expression or identity. I think, like, maybe just a note for those people is like, actually, you know, you may well, and you probably will experience some frictions, but actually really consolidate in on the kind of other people around you, like yourselves, and just, you know, those kind of people are really, really powerful and important. A small knit community, friends.
Yeah, I think we're really good at seeking out our people, you know. And
Yeah.
like, I think, you know, I also like I've had an incredible time at Guildhall, and formed a lot of my musical identity there and personal identity, and as I have found myself more and more, you know, it's been largely, you know, a positive reception of that. But I think what's important here for me, you know, listening to, like, thanks for sharing all that, Asher, because listening to those stories and just you bringing that stuff up, it reminded me of something I was thinking about, like our institutions and, like, you know, places of education and teachers in those institutions, I think, should be equipped, like, well, they should have an understanding that, like, you know, on my course, where there's predominantly a demographic of, like, people that have had resources and economic backing that's meant that they can go to music school or whatever, like, you know, that's largely like what we're looking at. But I think all the teachers should have an understanding that there's going to be people in that room that are bringing baggage from their lives that people may not necessarily know about. So it's like what you were talking about, like having to deal with stuff outside. You know, I think, you know, we need to understand that better. We need to be able to read between the lines better. Like, you should know that anyone coming from a place that's not the majority demographic, even anyone coming from anywhere in their life, is going to be bringing their baggage to that room. So if we can treat each other with that sensitivity, like especially in creative spaces where like we tend to be a little sensitive anyway, like I think it's really important, like, because we need to trust each other if we're going to work together creatively, if we're going to sit in the same room. So if we can just like be emotionally intelligent, like, and understand that everyone's bringing their baggage, whatever that might look like, to that room, then I think time at conservatoire and at any institution for people that might be bringing those bags would be a lot easier. Ultimately, I think just create, all you can do is create a space for people, and leave something that you hope will help people in some way. And being, you know, visible, just being there, and holding space, I think can be so important. But yeah, no, I'm on all the normal things. Instagram at Luca Manning Vox. I have a website. I have YouTube. I have Spotify. Just Luca Manning. It should come up somewhere. Either that or my embarrassing 15-year-old Twitter profile. You'll get one. But, yeah.
Woo! The best place to connect with me is probably Instagram. Website and stuff is in the pipeline, but you can follow me at Asher Fynn, ASHERFYNN, or you can follow my show if you want, Antics, which is at antics.wow.